Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Women Leading Powerfully Through Change. You will not believe the person I have here today. I am so excited to bring her on and share with you. I have known Alyssa Pajoli for many years, and she is an incredible human. I got to tell you, you know how you go out there in the world and you're like, wow, I wish I could have a win here. Well, what Alyssa puts together for her people is what's called a trifecta. Now, if you know what a trifecta is, it's 3 wins in a row. And the wins that she shares about relationships, about health and wellness, and about fulfillment are so needed in the world today. She just had to be part of this because all of you are out there leading yourselves and leading your teams. It's going to be a challenging time. And if you can be on board with what Alyssa brings to you today, you will just be amazed at the difference it makes in your life. So without further ado, I would like to have her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what she does and why she does it. And we love sharing with you guys. So Alyssa, thank you so much for being willing to hop in here and share your genius with people out there struggling.
Yeah, and I love that you call it I love that you call it my genius, because it's taken probably 7 years to actually embrace that. And so my name, obviously, like Kathy said, is Alyssa Pajoli. I'm located in the Chicagoland area. I've been coaching now full time for 7 years. I spent 10 years in corporate fitness. I managed fitness centers. And the reason I got into coaching is because I'm passionate about people's well-being, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, physical, relational, all of it. But there was a gap in my time in corporate. I would see people that would come down and bust ass in the gym that they just weren't getting the results they wanted. And so I was observing and having conversations, and I'm like, something's missing. So that's when I then moved to coaching, more about habit change, mindset, limiting beliefs, paradigm work. And then I just hit the ground running with it. I do believe that in order to create change and transformation, you cannot pillar or bracket off your life. You get to take into account who you are as a person, who you want to show up as, and how you're taking care of yourself. So the work I do is primarily focused around emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is special to me because I grew up in a very dysfunctional household where effective communication, articulation and understanding, being able to regulate in a safe and secure environment was not present. And I often find that there is a direct correlation in the professional world. When we are trying to bracket who we are personally and professionally, it can feel very inauthentic and transactional. So a lot of the work I do is to heighten emotional intelligence, to get you really aware of who you are, who you're being, how you're showing up, how you could maybe be perceived, so that you can really create a space where you lead with impact, you create connection, and you are able to experience more intimacy in your world. And we're not talking about just sexual intimacy, but intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy, like that deep grounded connection, which is so important. Because I don't know where you've been, but the last 2 years have been really, really rough, and loneliness has just skyrocketed. So we get to get really aware as well of the mental health crisis and the loneliness factor that we all are compounded and surrounded with subconsciously, and take ownership to change that, to create that change, that transformation, that ripple, so that we can just be the badass people that we are and have the life we want, because it's there. It's an option. It's a choice.
Yeah. And I think that's such a key, that many people don't see it as a choice based on outside circumstances, and trying to deal with all of those at the same time, not being able to focus in. But like you said, so many people, I was just like you, raised in that environment where emotions are to be stuffed, not to be dealt with. And I love how you took everything you were doing in fitness, because the way I look at what you do today, you still are about fitness. You're about emotionally being fit. You're about mentally being
Resilient,
fit,
mentally,
spiritually.
yes.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
all a part of being fit. And when we go out in the world or when we're home, if we're not feeling fit, then nothing follows that. Like it just doesn't. We've got to have that inside of us first.
And it's interesting because, like, in all the leadership training or information and education you get around emotional intelligence and like growth, adaptability, like being emotionally intelligent and being able to apply it essentially means that you're really adaptable and you cannot be resilient or tenacious if you're not adaptable. Like, you can and will not get anywhere if you don't have that adaptability factor. And so much of that goes into that. You have to be aware of what your experience is or what other experiences of others is, but then being able to apply that and believe that there is another option. Like, that's adaptability. It's huge. It's so crucial.
Yeah. And that adaptability like crosses. It really doesn't matter if the world is in a recession. It really doesn't matter if the world is experiencing something. When we get good at being able to adapt, change, pivot, like on a moment's notice, anytime
Yeah.
something comes up, when we don't revert back to that fighting what came up, and we go to a place of, oh yeah, there's always a way. Let me just take a
Yeah.
step. And do you find that when people come in and they're good at adapting, do they experience less stress, less struggle, less getting stuck without knowing what to do?
That's a great question. Yes. And that is where I was going to go with it. You have to think there's 4 levels of consciousness. And so when you are adaptable, it automatically puts you in a space of like, that life is happening for me. So you're in a more creative and like agile space. And yes, that is what you will experience: less stress. You'll be more creative, which, by the way, adults just naturally struggle with. Tech, work life, poor work life integration, leaky boundaries, all of that has hindered our ability to like really be creative. So you're more creative. You usually are able to have better boundaries because you can see and feel that there's going to be a way around it. So you sleep better, like from a health perspective. Yeah, you sleep better, better boundaries, less stress. So you will make better choices with eating. You won't like discontinue your movement patterns, but then also in your relationships, because stress is its own beast that happens. And stress is not a bad thing. There's good stress too. But when you can't manage your stress because you're not an adaptable person, your relationships, you're going to become more reactive. You're going to be rigid. You will be disconnected. Your people, you might be more unintentionally harmful or disrespectful or disempowering to people. Like, I could go on and on, but as you can see, this shit's all intertwined. It's all intertwined.
Yeah, totally intertwined. And when we're moving ahead with all these changes, if people are coming from a place of being stressed and lacking that creativity, like how we've done things in the past as leaders, excuse me, that is not going to get us anywhere this year. That is going to get us out of business, out of a job, out of our lives, unless we can put that in. So being able to make those changes quickly and creatively. I love that you brought up the creativity part, because the fact that we're trying to find new solutions, they are not in the busy mind of yesterday.
No, they're in the curious mind.
Yes.
You get to be curious. Yeah.
How have you seen that play out with some of your people when they go from that place of a busy mind to being curious and creative? Do they bring to the table more effective solutions?
I would say more effective and more empathetic. So one of the leading things in like the executive level of the corporate industry in which I'm coaching people on is like the struggle of being patient, managing, like we're remote, so we have bad boundaries, or my team has bad boundaries. There's just that like level of disconnect, lack of compassion, lack of patience. So in my experience, when someone is coming from a curious, the ability to be curious yet grounded, it allows you to be more solution oriented. So you're going to feel more connected to your employees or your family because you're just looking at life differently. So you're looking, and your conversations will be different. Your strategy to get from point A to point B won't feel as forced. So there's a flow element that allows you to be yourself, but then also stretch yourself and feel uncomfortable with the unknown, but like believing it's going to be okay. So there's like, people end up actually being more productive because there's not this finite, it has to be like this or needs to look like this. So yeah, I would say there's a lot of that goes with being curious and not being afraid to try. Like you have to get in action too. You can't just be curious and twiddle your thumbs. Like there's a getting in action and applying it component as well. I'm sorry.
I love that you bring that up because it does. Often people think that even in a world of, oh, I want this to be a certain way and it will come to me. It comes when you take action, like not, and I think going forward right now, it's kind of into the fail forward fast. Like the more that we can get out there and make it okay for our people and us, we're going to fail as well. And we want to be upfront with our people about that, yeah, I tried that.
May not go.
It didn't work. And now we're going to try this. So,
well, and there's a team element then too, especially if you're a manager or an owner of an organization. Like there's this camaraderie and community that like from a relationship energy can be very like securing. Like people need to feel safe. They need to feel respected. They need to feel valued. And so oftentimes the people I'm coaching, they try to just like burden themselves until they have it like figured out. And then they like delegate things to be like, to be handled. And that's not useful. That's very lonely. And it creates instability or lack of cohesion in your team or your organization. The more you can include people on what your world is and what you're thinking, it just allows people to like shine in areas you may not even know about them too. And that's also the benefiting factor of when we get into tough situations like a recession or like a different organization with a different team. Like when we're stretched, we're able to like really like slow down and see how we can maximize strengths of other individuals that like may not being like as an opportunity because it is so smooth and like automated. There's that I don't want the recession to be something that's negatively looked upon because there's a lot of benefiting factors within this.
Oh, there are so many, but I think like you said, it's almost like I run into two different types of people. Those who are seeing it as, wow, like this is amazing. Look at what we can try now versus, oh, this sucks and there's no point in doing anything. People look, and like you said, all of those things that you talked about really cause a change in perspective. Like how you see the world, it doesn't look the same. When you have your trifecta in place, when the people walk away from working with you, they have that grounding that the world is always going to be uncertain, but never has it been in our face more than since COVID. And having that strength, no matter what, is so key, so key. So,
and it's a choice. I cannot say that enough. Like it's a choice. That's one of the biggest things I ask people when they're thinking something that's disempowering. Like if they're having a negative thought or a victimizing thought or a defeating thought, it's like, how does that thought make you feel? And like they usually say disempowering, stuck, overwhelmed. And it's like, okay, so what is the intention behind choosing to think that thought? And whenever you ask a person like, yo, why are you choosing to think a thought that like naturally has a bad impact on you or a discomfort? It's like, oh yeah, no, like I can change my thought.
Yeah.
But it's a very conscious, effortful thing to choose to think differently or choose to think a different thought.
Right. Especially when you've been on that hamster wheel and your brain is going just as fast. It's so
Mhm.
hard because most people, I don't think, realize that those thoughts only are going to come true if they think them and focus on them. And so they're not consciously making that choice. But when you point it out and they see it, then I'm sure that, and I've
Like,
seen it
ooh.
too, that everything changes pretty quick after you beat yourself up and go, why am I still having that thought? Because those things
Mhm.
come. But then when you go, oh, that's just me being human. It's okay. I can let that shit go. Um, it's more empowering to them.
Mhm. It allows people to feel in control. And again, it's not about being in control because a large part of like being an evolved human is like surrendering, obviously, is to allow the just innate wisdom to trust in that which is greater and to allow and surrender. But also it's important that we all take responsibility for our thoughts because our thoughts and our language patterns and our habits are going to create our reality. Like it's you can create anything you want. That's like the like hidden secret of the power of our brain.
Yeah. The Play-Doh of the whole universe lies right here.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
we get to
Yeah.
mold it around and make what we want. And it's so funny because sometimes, and all of us do this because we're human, it's like if we're gonna make it up, if it really is kind of just made up,
Make it
let's make
count,
up
damn
the good
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather feel good. And it's almost like you say, with the emotions and everything, when we realize that, oh, that emotion is okay for me, I can experience now, because when my thought changes, I'll have a different emotion. And we can do anything for that time frame. But seeing it as a choice and all put together in that big bundle of Play-Doh we have to play with each day makes it look a lot more fun to go out in the world.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of my work when we're talking about the EQ is helping people understand that there's not a good or bad, there's not good or bad emotions. There's not positive or negative. There's comfortable and uncomfortable. And the only reason something's uncomfortable is because you haven't familiarized yourself with feeling it. And so that's something that like I just want the listeners or viewers to check in with too is like understanding that we all have like subconscious judgments around how we feel in certain situations. And there's no positive or negative, good or bad. Like the more emotions you can allow yourself to be familiar with, the easier that regulation and that application of adaptability or curiosity is going to be. It's not going to be this like block that you can't push through because you don't know how to like flow or regulate through this particular emotion.
Right. And I think that managers being understanding that those people are experiencing that too, because they're going to
Oh
experience it.
yeah.
Their people are experiencing it in a big way. And it is not about it being right or wrong. It's just about bringing it together, like you said, versus making any kind of judgment. I think back to when we were in health coach training, one thing that stuck with me was replace judgment with curiosity.
Oh yeah.
It's like we have so much of that unconscious judgment around things that we don't realize that are what gets in the way.
Well, and I think as a manager, it's hard to just like naturally slow down and connect with a person. Like empathy and compassion, as well as grace, like those are very conscious emotions to apply. And it's easy when you're stressed out and you're in your own like fight, flight, freeze situation, appease, to just be sympathetic for someone. And there's sympathy, which is I feel sorry for you. And empathy is I feel sorry with you. Like I see that you're struggling and I'm willing to sit in this space with you, even if I don't know the answer. And like, that's okay. And we don't naturally go in that space.
Right.
We don't naturally ask people, how are you feeling? Instead, we ask, how are you? Because we want that good or fine. We
Right.
don't want that, how are you feeling? And someone to say, you know what, I'm overwhelmed or I'm feeling really like lonely today. Can you imagine if someone says that to you? Like you're not going to be able to continue walking down the hall. Like you're going to be stopped. So even if you are a leader or a manager, start asking more articulate questions to really connect with your people. How are you feeling? What was the best part of your weekend? Don't ask like simple, low hanging fruit questions that lead you to like a numb or automated answer. The quality of your question will always yield the quality of your answer.
Yeah.
So
That
ask
is
better
such
questions.
a good point, because when we ask a question that we already know, we're going to get an answer that is not expressing anything. Like, what is the point? It just perpetuates that you're in the office, suck it up, just go on, do your time, which is what we totally don't want. We want
And it
people who
forces
are
people to check
engaged.
in. Yeah. And it forces people to actually check in. Like if you ask me, how am I? I'm probably going to say, yeah, good. But if you ask me how I'm feeling, it's like, oh, like I have to like check in with myself. And that's also the way in which we can help others enhance their emotional intelligence or their self-awareness so that we can start just having this more connected kind of culture
Yeah. Well, and
or
I think that,
community. It doesn't need to be corporate culture. It can just be community and family as well.
right. Well, and anywhere, it is really kind of like community and family. The more it
Yeah.
can be like that, the more it helps people, regardless of if you're in an office or in a house.
Yeah.
But I think too that, like I read something the other day, 76% of the workers are disengaged now.
Yep.
And that to me is a team leader, manager, like shift that they can change with all the things that you talked about and get those people engaged. Like I just love how you talked about asking them how they feel, because I know there were some managers I had like right when COVID hit and they were really struggling themselves. And it took them a little bit to go, oh my gosh, like everybody on my team was really having a hard time. And when I actually sat down and connected with them, we were able to help bring everybody together.
And I think
And
that's the struggle with the remote working. Like, don't get me wrong, I am an introvert. I love working from home. I'm a beast. Um, I love my dog. I love the fostering. And like, so I really excel working from home with the private conversations I'm having. But there is a need to be around people. And so for me, I try to go to a coffee shop or go and work remote, like at least once a week. But I just completed a Thrive Global Executive Coaching training. And that was one of the biggest things saying, like, this whole working from home
mhm,
24/7 is not going to work from a space of having healthy, connected culture with people. So if you are a person that thinks like you like, I find that the offices that are requiring people to come into the office 2 to 3 days a week are going to have the least amount of turnover, the better team morale. Like it's just important to get people together, to feel one another's energy, to connect, to see, to feel. Like there is something that cannot be the human to human in person energy and the exchange that happens cannot be replaced in a Zoom room. It just can't. And the sooner you grasp that and you respect that, it doesn't have to be every week, but maybe it's like, a team of 5, we get together every other week on Tuesdays for 3 to 4 hours.
mhm. I
I
love
don't
it.
know.
So great solutions, I think, come out of what you're seeing. And if you had an office with 500 people, like what would you say would be a hybrid. I kind of think we need to have different hybrids based on different needs and different businesses.
Different industries.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you like? How would you work that to get maximum connection still? Like you said, you mentioned the 3 days out, 2 days in. What do you think is good things to try for people?
I feel like if people haven't done in my coaching, we call it the entry interview. When you hire someone on, you really sit down and you get to know, like, what are your priorities outside of work? Like, what are your non-negotiables that you need to know? Because maybe I have tap dance lessons Wednesday at 6:30 or 5:45 in the evening. So like I need to be leaving the office, or I'm turning it off at this. Or maybe I have a kid who has piano lessons, I do, at 4:30 on Wednesdays. So picking him up at 3:30 to go to that and then being done. I think as a company or as a manager, it's important to first and foremost have that conversation with your team and your department. Each department is definitely different. So getting clear on what does it look like for your team and your department that's going to allow you all to be able to maximize your skill set and your lifestyle. Like maybe one department goes in 1 or 2 days where other people need to go in, like workspace managers, like my partner, she manages an office. Her team goes in all 5 days, and they need to because they are the facility management team. Like they run the facilities. So it's a little different than the accounting department that like just punches numbers, but they also are people that could likely need to be stretched to see and talk to people at least once a week, like getting them out of their spaces. So it's kind of a long-winded answer. I think first and foremost, you have to have the conversation around like, who are you as a person? Like, what are your priorities and your values, and how can we support you in maximizing the work you do for us, for me, and not having to jeopardize the priorities and values that you hold outside of this. And as a team, how can we collectively come to an agreement that like kind of supports all parties?
Yeah. Wow. That's very, very powerful. And I think like what I hear you saying is what we need in businesses and every agency, whatever it is more human friendly policies. I was going to call it family friendly, but it really is just more policies that allow people to have a life. Because if people aren't having a life, they're for sure going to be disengaged, and they're for sure going to not be there very long.
The absentee is going to be higher. The healthcare costs, because they're not going to be taking care of themselves, is going to be higher. The team morale is going to be poor. The productivity is going to be like, we have to understand that we are humans, and like who we are gets to encompass everything. Like your nervous system it cannot bracket off. This is who I am as a professional. This is who I am as a parent. This is who I am as a lover. This is who I am as like a friend or a sibling. It's like at some point we just get to be okay with like, you are you, and this is what comes with you, and how can we support that and like really respect that and connect to that, because this is who I am and I want the same for me.
Beautiful. Well, I love what you're doing, and unfortunately we're coming to the end of our time. So if you could leave people with one action they could take today, what would that be?
My gut is telling me to enhance your emotional intelligence. The more you can, your feelings and your mindset create literally everything you have. Even if you are a fitness guru, you're not going to be able to use movement in an effective way that's going to make that mental and emotional baggage or bullshit go away. So like, the more you can connect to yourself and your thoughts and how it is you're processing things, the more you're going to be able to help others, or you're going to create a space that allows others to do that. And when we start to fundamentally and foundationally create that ripple, that connectiveness and that intimacy, just, we're here to be part of communities and connect. So like embody it and build on it. Enhance your emotional intelligence.
Beautiful. So tell us a little bit about your gift and how people can get a hold of you. And on Alyssa's speaker page, you will find your way to get this. I encourage you for sure.
Yeah.
Jump in there and get a hold of this, because you have some huge gems here.
Yeah. So my free gift includes 3 really powerful tools that I regularly use. One is the ruler method. It is an emotion recognition, understanding, labeling, expression, and regulating tool. It's an acronym. It's easy, but every person needs to apply it. So the ruler method is really effective. There's an emotional articulation, like I don't want to say it's a journal, but it's like, it's a list of questions that can help you when you're in a time where you're trying to process an emotion or process conflict, how to really be able to work through the thoughts and the experiences to get you through regulating and having a solution and an action to take. And then the last one is just a way to kind of format a journal or a writing down exercise to just bring more awareness to who you're being and how you want to show up, so that you can start to create that. So those are the 3 things that are 3 individual things, as well as a bunch of resources. That's what my free gift includes.
Absolutely check that out, you guys, because those tools, I'm getting them too, but trust me, these are like, we've got to have that toolbox, and the tools she's offering are amazing. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you so much, Alyssa. I am honored.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so grateful to have you in my life and have you here sharing your genius with everyone, because I know how important the work that you do, the work that we all are doing is in, it's creating a better world. And
oh yeah,
I appreciate what you do each day and how you bring that to the world. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. And have a wonderful day.
Bye.